Hey everybody, this is Chris Dovas from Seven Spires, and you are watching Richard Metal Fan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode 96, and today's guest we're talking to Chris Dovas. Chris Dovas is the drummer for the band Seven Spires, a four-piece symphonic metal band from Boston, Massachusetts. Today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal, what inspired him to play drums, as well as talking about Seven Spires, and he also plays in other bands like Omega Point, Unflesh, Firewing, and he also does some live stuff with Vital Remains and also Testament. So, without further ado, let's go talk to Chris.
So what's up, guys? I am here with Chris Dovas from Seven Spires. How are you doing today, Chris?
Good, thanks.
All right. So basically this format is I want to do a quick rundown of your catalog as well as like your journey as an artist from where you started to now. So before we go into that, what were like the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to start playing drums?
First band, so the band, I started playing drums when I was like really little, like because my dad was a drummer. So like two or three, but I wasn't like playing then, I was just banging, away. And I started learning some stuff, like some beats around like 6 or 7 years old. And then I found my parents showed me Green Day, and I was like a huge Green Day fan
Yeah.
from there on out. And then I started developing an interest in metal and everything when I was about 8 or 9. And Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath were like that was
The
like,
gods.
yeah, that's like what I wanted to be, like Randy Rhoads and on guitar, and then Tommy Aldridge, who's still my favorite drummer to date, was my favorite combo. So between Ozzy, Randy, Rudy Sarzo, and Tommy Aldridge, and then Don Erie, I think, on the keys. But yeah, then that lineup was like the tribute album. Have you heard that, the live album? That was like I listened to that every day, So I would
That's a
say,
great
so
album.
Ozzy, and then Tommy Aldridge was like my drum hero,
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, a lot of people know you from Seven Spires, Red Reiner, Firewing, currently. But I'm always curious, what were like your even bands like before all Seven Spires and all that?
What bands did I do before Seven Spires?
Yeah.
Um, the band before Seven Spires, it was just me and some buddies from high school, um, just kind of playing, around like covers and stuff, like some thrash covers and everything. And I was about 15 or 16 when I joined Spires, so I didn't like have like a ton of like gigging history before that, So it was just me and some buddies from high school, and they couldn't make a gig actually, and uh, I ended up finding a guy named Nick Petrino, and he plays with Dee Snider now, but
Oh,
he was in a
wow.
thrash band. Yeah, he was in a thrash band back in the day called like Aggressor or something like that. And anyway, I met him, and he played that gig with me, and then he introduced me to Adrian, the singer for Seven Spires, and that's kind of how I met them. And I was like 15 or 16 when I auditioned, because they were still kind of forming the lineup at that point, which was cool. So
Yeah. Yeah, and from what I was reading up on Metal Archives, I believe one of your first bands was called Firstborn. Tell me a little bit about that.
yeah, so Metal Archives is like not necessarily the best like source, because I think it's updated by people. So
Yeah.
my first band was really like my high school band, and then Spires I joined, and then
Oh,
Firstborn was like 4 or 5 years later, I would say. And I did like I did probably a little, like maybe a little less than a year with them. They were just some buddies I was helping out for a bit, but I still keep in touch with all of them. Um, Especially the bass player Ven. I see him pretty frequently, and he's a great friend of mine. So, and Mike Kerr is a great friend of mine. So playing with them was cool. I didn't do any albums or anything. But it was the year or so that I was playing some shows with them was cool. It was nice.
yeah. And tell me about like the making of the debut Seven Spires album, So Vague. It's a really great debut album. But tell me about like what was the thought process making the debut album?
So making the debut album. So here's a funny story with that is I joined the band. So they didn't have a drummer when I joined, and they were just like, "Fuck it, we're gonna make an album anyway," and which is totally understandable. And they made the album, and it's awesome. And I joined when I was like, again back when I was like 16. I was like my last year of high school,
Oh wow.
and we played some gigs, and I was like, "Hey, do you need someone for the album?" And they're like, "Fuck, we just sent everything out to Sasha, who mixed it, Sasha Path, who mixed and mastered it, and they ended up programming the drums on that first album. So I'm not on that album, but it released like 2 years later. Um, so I was maybe 17 or 18 at that point. So I was still in like the music videos and stuff like that. And I was still, still there for a lot of it, but the writing and all that stuff I was not really a part of for that album, and that's not me on there. But I am on the in the music videos, and I did all the shows for that and everything, all the tours after that, and so that's cool. My first album with them was Emerald Seas, though.
Yeah, we'll get into that, but kind of like going into 2018. I know you did like a bunch of like session stuff and stuff, but one thing I want to talk about is like the band Unflesh. You did like an album called Savior. Tell me about like that. How'd you hook up with those guys?
That's funny. Yeah, I'm wearing the shirt. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I so yeah, that was a band I was very proud of the work we all did on that album. So Ryan Beaver's the guitar player and the mastermind behind that band. He's just absolutely just mind-boggling player, and I'm really happy I got to be a part of that. So that's another band I was really invested in and really a part of. It was Seven Spires and then Unflesh. I was doing those two at the same time for a while, which was really cool. And so you asked, what was it like making the album?
Yeah.
I mean, so making that album was really cool because Ryan is one of those musicians who really pushed me to my limits. And the way I play today, especially a lot of the extreme metal stuff, is because of working with him, like him pushing me to my absolute limits. I mean, I remember when I'd be blasting and playing, and he would just be like, "Can you play faster, please? And can you do this? And can you accent that? And it was like you like really pushed me." So I remember like when we were working on the songs and doing all the pre-production stuff. I mean, I was at Berkeley at the time, and I was constantly in my dorm with my pad set up doing just speed exercises, like constantly just trying to build my speed. And so he's just one of those guys that really, really pushed me to my limits. So then when we made the album and the tracks came out how they did, I was just beyond thrilled, and it was cool. And I was about that was a while ago actually. So I was at Berkeley. I think I was about 18 when I recorded that album. So I'm 24 now. So it's like six years ago.
Wow.
Time flies. I don't remember when it was released. Maybe 2019. I would like to say, but I recorded that when I was 18. I was like fresh into Berkeley. So and extreme. And that's around the time I started getting into extreme music. Because of meeting Ryan. So it was. I have nothing but great things to say about him.
That's awesome. I had no idea you were that young, and I'm older. I'm like 28, so I'm surprised. You guys are like younger than me.
Yeah, 24 now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's the first I've had somebody that's like younger than me, because mostly I have people that are like closer to my age or like way older.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, but then also that same year you did something with Widows, right? Tell me about them, because and the funny thing is we were talking about Metal Archives, like they're listed as symphonic progressive power metal. Like what kind of like sub genres that they're gonna come up with next?
Yeah. That was just a buddy that needed some drums recorded, and I just laid down some tracks for them. I don't know how Metal Archives gets all this stuff. It's kind of cool how like
they might be stalking. They might be stalking everybody.
Yeah, but by what?
I think people might be stalking you or something.
Maybe. I mean, like I don't have much to say about that project, to be honest with you. I don't know anything about it or anything. I mean, it was like a mutual friend of Jack and Adrian's, and hey, can you help me with this track? And, yeah, I can help you. And then, it did some session work and, get paid per track. And and that's it. I have not much to say about it other than I enjoyed that music, which is cool. So
Yeah, and I know you also that same year you also did another band, Omega Point. And you did like Isolation in 2018. Tell me about that, because I think it's a lot more kind of like darker compared to like that, but almost equally darker, easily as dark as Seven Spires stuff.
so that album, my buddy from Germany, I think you pronounce it Reese Treaty or or something like that. But we did some like YouTube collabs together, like back in like the pandemic. We did like a Lack of Comprehension by Death. No, actually, I think I recorded that album a little bit before that. But it was just, again, it was just some session work I did.
Yeah.
It's just my name's on the album. He sent me the tracks. I would like to. He wanted to. He's like, I'd like you to put your, what you would do on it. I put what I did on it. He gave me some feedback. I did what he said, and that was that. Those are kind of like some of these bands, like Widow's Right and Omega Point. They were just, it's like more like some work for hire stuff. So I'm not a part of any creative process other than laying down tracks that they need laid down.
All right. And then kind of
Yeah.
going back into Seven Spires, your actual first record with the band, Emerald Seas. I love this album. This is probably, in my opinion, my favorite Seven Spires album. That's pretty much what got me into you guys. Hey, so what was that like now actually contributing to the band, like songwriting wise?
Yeah, so that very heavily involved into that one. So with that was cool. I actually recorded that album, like, I think I was 18 as well. It was right after I recorded the Unflesh album, the Savior album. So it was like a couple months after that, and so I was very fresh and ready to go for that album. And it's just, Adrian could explain the story a lot better than I could. I mean, I know what it's about and everything like that, but it's cool because with these albums, I really like to know the lyrics and what the songs are about.
Yeah,
because they're concept albums. And so, like, Succumb, it's like, it's about, like, succumbing to your old memories, and
another one of my
more
favorite
of a
songs.
Yeah, exactly. It's more a happy song. And so I was like, okay, so here's what it's about. How do I translate that emotion onto the drums now? You know what I mean? Like, Fearless, right? That's about coming to terms with death. I'm pretty sure. And it's if I remember, she was explaining it to me like he's trying to die but can't die. Like, there's a bunch of water being, no, this was when I think I'm mixing up. I think I'm mixing up a Solveig and a
because I had Adrian on. I think
I'm thinking
this was
of
supposed to be came out. This chronologically. That's the story was before this.
It was before. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Depths. The song Depths. That one is the when the person can't die. The protagonist cannot die. This one, it was about coming to terms, like not fearing death, basically. And so I had to then portray that emotion, that darker, evil type of emotion onto the drums, basically. And so I tried to capture a lot of those emotional moments, like Silvery Moon being the ballad, how pretty that song is, and
Amazing
trying to just
song,
capture
by the way.
all. Thank you, appreciate it. But yeah, that's kind of was my goal in my purpose, or my role of recording, was capturing the proper emotions for the songs because they're concept albums. So, but yeah, sorry about that. I was confusing Depths with
you're
Fearless.
good. You're good, man. One of my favorite songs from this album is Unmapped Darkness. It kind of reminds me, I heard somebody describe it as like a metal Disney song. I just think really has like a positive kind of like vibe to it, and I really hope you play it on the Elevite tour in March. I will go nuts if you all play that.
Yeah, I mean, we played that song live a little bit, so I could never
find any YouTube videos of it, and I'm pissed.
Yeah, I'll pass that info along because I know that that's a very highly requested song, and so that's a fun one.
All right, and then the next album in your most latest album, Gods of Debauchery. I love this album. Pretty much one of my favorite albums from last year. What was that like going from Emerald Seas to this?
What was it like?
Yeah, yeah, just like the
Um,
transition.
so that album was um, we recorded that like peak pandemic, like we're like August of 2020, and that's when I recorded it, and Jack and Adrian were just when all our tours and everything got canceled. I mean, that's just basically that was the one thing we could do and control, and was that album. So we just kind of put everything we could into that album, and it was really funny actually because when Pete and I wanted to get together and practice, that's like peak pandemic where everyone's like, you can't see anybody, like we can't even be in the same room and
Yeah,
anything like
you
that.
can't breathe
And
on
so like,
anybody.
yeah, and so where I was living, it was like, like you can't get together with anyone because everyone's gonna die. And I'm like, but we
Yeah,
need to work on the album,
yeah,
So
you
so
can't
that's
lick any doorknobs. It's bad.
yeah. It was just one of those like it was very fresh, and I remember just being very like, what is happening, So, but it was fun. We ended up getting it was just the one thing um, that we all just kind of put. We weren't working because no one was working during that time, so we were able to put literally 100% of our time into that, and so I think that's partly why it came out the way it did. I feel like if we didn't have the pandemic, a lot of those songs would have turned out a lot different, because who knows what would have happened when they, I just don't know.
Yeah,
It came out the way it did because we were able to put literally everything we had into that.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and of course that I discovered I finally got to see you all, of course, this year. I first saw you all on that tour at Dragon Force, and then you did the set at Prague Power, and those were amazing. I got to see you like twice in like 2 months and this year.
sweet.
So yeah, and then going into also, so in 2021 you did a Fire Wing. How did you hook up with those guys? Because I know some of them are from Brazil and Brazil and stuff. And how did you hook up with those guys?
Short story is that one of my good friends at Berkeley, his name is Caio Kin. He's from Brazil. Met him my freshman year, and he actually played in Unflesh with us for a very short, brief period of time. And this, we met kind of, we started playing together through that, and then he kind of goes, hey man, I have this project, and I would love to have you on. And back, it was great because you start meeting all these people at Berkeley, and we start getting really busy and helping each other out with each other's projects, and it was really cool. So I just kind of I recorded that my sophomore year at Berkeley, so I was like 19 or something like that, and yeah, I mean, it was cool. I recorded it at one of his professor's houses, like his home studio up in Maine, and that was cool. It was his is a big epic concept as well, about like a phoenix and a dragon, or a phoenix. I don't know, something like that. So he has a cool little he has a cool thing going on with that as well. So I mean, yeah, again, session work, and that was cool. I mean, I was in the music video. He was living in Boston for a while, but it was cool. It was funny because we recorded that album when like my sophomore year, and it didn't get released until like 2020 or 2021 or something like that. So
Yeah.
it it was just so it was cool to finally hear those songs after it being so long after we recorded them. So again, it wasn't really like anything. It was just like he gave me songs and he needed drums, and he's my friend, so I helped him record and helped him with his music video and everything like that. And then he moved back to Brazil, and he got a full lineup together, and now they're doing gigs, and they're touring now and stuff. I think they're starting to go on some tours pretty soon, and it's cool to finally see him taking off with his project, which is awesome.
Awesome. And I know this year you did like a lot of stuff, whether it be we a lot of session stuff. I know you did Red Rainer with Eater, and I know you also did you also did like Threads of Fate, which is Jack's other band with the Cold Embrace of the Light. Tell me about like those little like session work stuff.
Um, it's the same with Threads of Fate. I can talk a little more about.
Yeah.
But again, the Red Rainer, it's again, same thing. Session work for hire. Hey, can you record? Yes, I can. Here's the rate. Boom. Send me the tracks. I record. I revise and edit until they're happy, and that's that. Again, I'm not a part of that creative process. Threads of Fate, it was kind of the same thing, except that's Jack's other band. So obviously working with Jack
Yeah.
very closely all the time. I was a little more caught up to speed on what everything was going to be, and also John Pyers did the vocalist did a guest spot on Unforgotten Name on God's Debauchery album,
Yeah.
the Seven Spires album.
Another
So
great
John's on
song.
that. So yeah, so and he's in that video as well, and so it's I know those guys more, and I'm more involved in their in their lives, and so their side project I was able to kind of be there more. I didn't write anything, but Jack produced it, and I recorded with Jack. We got a room, and
Yeah.
Mike kit drums up, and he recorded, and that was that. That was the process. It was a lot of these session things. I'm not part of it. I don't have any crazy stories because it's more just like, hey, here's the tracks, and I record them for them.
Yeah.
But whereas Spires and my solo stuff and
Yeah.
Unflashed, like bands that I was really in and really involved and gigged with and toured with and everything like that, those are the ones that I have more stories about, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And kind of like going into live work. I know you actually filled in for Testament for a little bit, which I think is awesome because they're one of my favorite bands. Tell me about playing with them for a little bit, because I guess Dave Lombardo was kind of busy doing other stuff, and they were like, "Hey, could you do this?"
Yeah. So it was an honor.
Yeah.
It was just an honor, to be, to have done that, So hopefully more in the future too. It was just absolutely a great experience. And the one thing I can say is they're pros and they're very professional, and they are where they are for a reason, because they are just so easy to work with. They have their shit together, and it was just a great experience overall. And it's just I learned so much, working with veterans and people I idolized growing up, and doing a tour of that caliber. It really it gives you something to strive for, for an end goal, because of just it was just cool to be on a something of that caliber, basically, and I busted my butt, to learn all those songs and play them as well as I could, because it was it's like whatever was in my head. I'm like, fuck, I'm playing for Testament. I gotta really nail this,
Yeah.
And so like before the shows and everything, I'm in there, I got my headphones on, and I'm air drumming the songs, and it was a great time. But I mean, everyone made me feel so comfortable. Chuck, Steve, Alex, and Eric, they just were very wonderful people. And I talked to Eric a lot, the most going into this. He was kind of the guy I was coordinating with and everything. He's the one who told me which songs we were going to play, when we were rehearsing, what the logistics would be and everything like that. And then, it was just a great experience. It was playing those songs that I loved so much growing up. And then, it's cool. Like I'm playing like Into the Pit, right?
Yeah.
And that's a song that I covered with my friends in high school, and it's
Yeah.
like it's just it was a real, and I have their their DVDs and everything like that, and it's what I saw on TV. So that I'm doing the dan 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 dan, and I look at Chuck and he's doing the air drum thing with his mic stand. And I'm just like, fuck, I remember seeing that on TV. Like that's so cool that I'm like doing this with them now, you know. So, but it was cool. I mean, I did like 6 or 7. No, I think it was like 6 shows, you know, and it was just a straight, you know, it was just an absolute honor to be even a part of that, or even considered for that matter, you know, to be filling in for shoes of that, to be filling in for shoes of Dave Lombardo and for Testament.
Yeah.
That's all I could say. It was great things. And I learned so much, you know, like the feedback they gave me, oh, do this or do that, you know, like just the stuff. I just learned so much from them, you know, I mean, and they've been doing it for 30, 35, 40 years, I don't know, 30, 35 years, something like that. And so there's always, you know, I went into it with a beginner's mind and I just learned and soaked everything up, you know, of a headlining touring act like that. So that was cool.
All right. And I know you also do some solo stuff, like, or the idea to come to be like, hey, I want to do a little solo career thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a solo project. I do all the instruments on them, and I do guitar, vocals, and the drums, and I write everything. And Pete played the bass on them, and then I get some friends to play the guitar solos because I'm not much of a solo guitar guitar.
Yeah. So did you ever play
guitar? It's death metal.
Yeah. Did you ever play guitar before drums, or did you pick a guitar right after?
After, yeah. It was I was studying a lot at Berkeley, obviously, and they shove music theory down your throat there, basically. And there was days where I couldn't practice drums because I had to work on my harmony or my counterpoint projects or ear training, and I worked on it so much that I said to myself it would be really kind of a waste of time if I just forgot everything after, and a waste of money. So I tried piano and I didn't like it as much, but I picked up guitar because I grew up listening to, again, like guitar players like Randy Rhoads, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Slayer, all those Slayer riffs and stuff like that. I was like, I think I could relate to this a little more. So I picked up guitar and ended up being a lot of fun. And so I had that solo project because that keeps me in shape, practicing writing songs and also playing guitar. If I don't have a reason to do something, I tend not to do it. So having a reason to play guitar and do that, that's what keeps me playing for that.
Right.
And also just exercising the stuff I learned at Berkeley, because I can't play chords on the drums, you know.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I've checked out some of your solo stuff, and I had no idea you do like brutal vocals. I was like, holy shit, you sound fucking amazing.
Sweet, man. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. And have you ever is it done live shows or is it just studio only?
It was studio only for a bit, only because I released the first album in the pandemic, because I wasn't obviously expecting that to happen. So it was like released in like May, I'd like to say April and May of 2020, the first one, and then I started working on the second one after because I couldn't do any shows, and then I released Preacher of Lies earlier this year in February on Valentine's Day. And I finally played the first show. It was a hometown show, which was cool, and it was great. It was a small venue, but it was packed, and it was like one of those really small, intimate death metal shows, where everyone's like right up there in front of you. So that was cool. I played guitar and sang, and I was like fronting the band, and so I found that to be very cool because it's like playing a different position in a sport. Like you're learning to, if you're an offensive player and then you try to play defense, you learn the importance of every role. So it's like doing the fronting, the front man thing, it's like you learn that aspect in your role, and it helps me become a better drummer because I know what it's like now a little bit. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience, but I mean, I know kind of what it's like now being in the front and playing in guitar and everything. And so it gives me a better perspective, which is cool.
Also, did it feel like weird, like being up front because you're used to being in the back playing the drums?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it felt really weird, but I had a blast though because of that. Because it was a different feeling, you know. So it's like eating a different candy, you know. It's like uh, you I got a different kind of adrenaline from it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of like wrapping things up, Zap, I just want to thank you for this interview. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the Elevite tour in March. Is just anything else with the Seven Spires or low stuff that you would also like to plug?
uh, I'm so sorry. This was cutting in and out a little bit when you said that. What was the last thing you wanted me to say?
Say, is there just anything else you would just like to plug with the Seven Spires, your solo stuff, or any other projects? And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the Elvite tour in March.
Awesome. I mean, it's just the usual, man. Thanks for supporting us, and it's the usual of like if you haven't heard us, go follow our pages, you know, Seven Spires, and we're on Instagram, Facebook. Our website is sevenspiresband.com, and you can grab any merch there, and you can get Dovas merch at chrisdovas.com, and yeah, I obviously just really appreciate any support anyone gives my bands, you know, like the art that I create, you know, because it's what allows me to be able to keep doing it. So it's just that's about all I can say for that, is just how much I appreciate everyone that supports us. And if you haven't heard of us yet, then I hope you'll check it out, and I hope you like it.
Awesome. So everybody, Chris Dovas from Seven Spires. See you next time.